They're serving our country in battle overseas, but when it comes to the ballot box, many American troops aren't being counted. Reaching a magic number in next week's election could put a single party in power. How has this played out before in American politics? And these presidential candidates don't agree on much, but there's one topic on which the opponents share the same stance. Hi there, I'm Carl Azuz. First up today, concerns about votes that may not be counted. Now, if you can't get to the polls on Election Day, there are other ways to cast your ballot. We've talked a lot about early voting. For U.S. forces in combat, though, an absentee ballot is the way to go. But as Carol Costello tells us, many of those votes may actually get tossed out.
They risked their lives in Iraq and Afghanistan, yet their vote for America's president often does not count.
It's dismal, okay? And these are the voters that are, in some cases, preserving our liberties and out there with their lives on the line.
Rodriguez works for the U.S. Elections Assistance Commission, a nonpartisan group. In the last general election, as best she can determine, only about 30% of overseas military ballots were actually returned and counted.
It's disenfranchising our military, and frankly, I think it's very unpatriotic.
One reason so many military votes are not counted: every state has its own rules for absentee voting, and they can change in the middle of an election cycle. For example, in Virginia, a federal write-in ballot required a witness's signature and address. But for soldiers overseas, that proved confusing because there is no box provided for a witness's address.
This is the form.
Roki Solman, the Fairfax County, Virginia registrar, initially said he would have to discard 63 votes because voters neglected to list a witness address.
These ballots that aren't being met, I can't accept as valid ballots at this point. If the law changes, I welcome a review of the law. I think this law is horrible.
Late Monday, Virginia's Attorney General agreed, saying all county registrars can now ignore that part of the law. A bigger problem? The U.S. mail. It may be able to deliver your mail through rain, sleet, and snow, but not a battlefield.
This is something that
Congressman Kevin McCarthy says absentee ballots mailed from war zones are not getting to county registrars fast enough to be legally counted.
With all the modernization that we have, we should be able to move these ballots, track them at the same time, bring the modernization of the technology that we have today to make sure our heroes across this world get treated fairly.
Congressman McCarthy of California says he is pushing a bill through Congress that will address these issues, but it'll be too late for Election 2008. He suspects more than half of our troops voting absentee will be voting in vain. Carol Costello, CNN, Washington.
Okay, I'm fired up about this story. Check out our blog, see what I have to say, and to tell us what you have to say. Now, regarding the candidates many Americans will be voting for, Seth writes, Barack Obama should be the one to win the election. He makes a good point on how he will cut down the emissions by 2050. But Kayla says, I hope it will be John McCain because of the effort he puts into helping our country. I also think his economic plan is better. Listen to Nick, though. Everywhere I look, he says, I see posters, bumper stickers, or billboards with the candidates' names. My neighbor has 6 sticking out of their front lawn, but personally, I don't know who I want as president. My dad's voting McCain, my mom's voting Obama.
Time for a shout-out. Which of these political terms describes talking a bill to death? Is it veto, filibuster, cloture, or override? You've got 3 seconds. Go. A filibuster is a prolonged speech intended to delay legislation or to keep it from passing. That's your answer, and that's your shout-out.
It takes 60 votes to stop a filibuster in the U.S. Senate. Right now, there are 49 Republican senators, 49 Democrats, and there are 2 independents as well. But some political experts think that magic number of 60 could be within reach for one party, and it wouldn't be the first time. Bill Schneider examines the political track record.
It's almost Halloween. John McCain has a scary story.
Can you imagine an Obama-Pelosi-Reid combination? We can't let that happen.
Are the voters scared? A little. Only 36% believe it would be better for the country to have a president and Congress controlled by the same party. Slightly more, 41%, prefer to see divided government. In recent years, the public's experience with unified government has not been happy. Under President George W. Bush, Republicans controlled the White House and Congress for 4 years. That ended badly with a voter revolt in 2006. President Bill Clinton had a Democratic-controlled Congress for only 2 years. That ended badly, too, with another voter revolt in 1994. In the old days, unified government sometimes lasted a long time. The Republicans controlled everything for 12 years, starting in the 1920s. When Democrats swept into power with Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1932, they controlled everything for 14 years. Are voters becoming more impatient? Or are the parties becoming more extreme? The argument for unified government is that it's a way to get things done.
With your help, we will add to the majority of Democrats in the House, and yes, we will get a filibuster-proof majority of Democratic senators.
The risk, Republicans argue, is that the Democrats will go too far.
My opponent is working out the details with Speaker Pelosi and Senator Reid of their plans to raise your taxes, increase spending, and concede defeat in Iraq.
The Republican Congress got in trouble for abusing its power and moving too far to the right. Now they're arguing, don't let the Democrats do the same thing from the left. The downside of unified government is the potential for the abuse of power. The downside of divided government is gridlock. Either way, there's a risk. Bill Schneider, CNN, Washington.
In our week-long look at the political positions of Senators Barack Obama and John McCain, you might be surprised to find out that these guys actually agree on something. But today we are focusing on one issue where they do see eye to eye. That issue is stem cell research. Scientists believe that by studying these cells from human embryos, they can learn more about different diseases and potentially how to treat them. Both Senators McCain and Obama support federal funding for this kind of research, but neither senator believes that those embryos should be created just for research purposes. They're also both opposed to human cloning. Senators Obama and McCain have voted exactly the same on several key bills related to this issue.
Time for a shout-out extra credit. Who is the current Secretary General of the United Nations? Is it Hamid Karzai, Kofi Annan, Nicolas Sarkozy, or Ban Ki-moon? You've got 3 seconds. Go! Ban Ki-moon has served as the UN Secretary General since January of 2007. That's your answer, and that's your shout-out extra credit.
Syria is asking Mr. Ban and the UN to get involved with an incident we told you about yesterday. The country sent a formal complaint about a U.S. attack that Syria claims killed 8 civilians. But an American official calls the airstrike a successful attack on a suspected al-Qaeda terrorist and his network, accused of smuggling weapons into Iraq. Mr. Ban's office says it is reviewing the complaint. Some rare good news for the economy, believe it or not, as we are wrapping up one of the worst months ever on Wall Street. However, yesterday, the Dow Jones average, which indicates how the overall market is doing, gained nearly 890 points. This is only the 5th time this month that the Dow has finished the day in positive territory, but it's the 2nd biggest one-day point gain in history. And before we go, what do ghouls do on their day off? Well, have a parade. Why not? Might look more frightening than fun, or like something out of Frankenstein. I don't know. These terrifying torchbearers are just celebrating Halloween in their own special way by trapping a guy inside a giant bubble. That is actually the brainchild behind this ghoulish gathering. He's in a band called the Flaming Lips, and the bubble is part of his usual stage show. The parade is made up of thousands of die-hard fans. You guys have a great day. I'm Carl Azus.